Welcome to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dale Lolley, and we're going to talk a little Bengals Steelers today. We'll talk more about the injury report. Deontay Johnson, another limited participation on the practice report today for the Steelers. That would seem to be trending in the right direction, despite some reports to the contrary out there, people just guessing about what's happening with Deontay Johnson. I'm just telling you what I've seen at practice. He seems like a guy who looks like he's going to play. And the teammates, several of his teammates talked today about that. Matt Canada talking about Deontay Johnson's potential participation as well. And everybody sounds optimistic regarding that. I feel pretty good about that. And I will say he also was listed on the injury report today with cramps. That's a situation where, it was hot today. He hadn't done a lot of practice work leading up to this. So not surprising that he might have a cramp out there in this situation. But certainly Deontay Johnson looking like he's trending towards playing Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. That's really good news for the Steelers, of course. He is their number one receiver. On the other side of the coin, though, Chuks Okorafor, the Steelers starting right tackle, didn't practice today. He's dealing with a back issue of some type. Could have just been something where he slept on it wrong or something along those lines. I know there have been some people dealing with some illnesses this week as well. And, well, you wake up, you feel the aches and pains of, a flu or whatever it is that's going around. And, the pain is in your back and you feel like, oh, I can't get going today. You might just misinterpret that for, a back injury. We'll see. I think tomorrow will be a big day for Chuks Okorafor, certainly to see whether he gets back in there, to play in this game against the Bengals. And the Steelers could certainly use Chuks Okorafor. I know a lot of people kind of, when the Steelers signed him to the contract they did in the offseason, looked at it and go, wow, I can't believe they gave him that much money. He's been pretty good in the preseason. And I know a lot of people looked at, I kept reading reports where Chuks Okorafor was getting beaten in training camp. Yeah, he was getting beaten by TJ Watt. Name me an offensive lineman or right tackle who's not getting beaten by TJ Watt. As I kept saying all along, nobody was going to be happier for training camp to end than Chuks Okorafor. He has to go against TJ Watt every day. And I think that makes him a better player in the long run for sure. But certainly not fun doing that. Even if it's 10 snaps a practice, that's still 10 snaps where you're going against the best edge rusher in the NFL. And so, they could certainly use Chuks Okorafor out there against the Bengals on Sunday. So we'll keep an eye on that. It could end up being a game time decision or situation with Chuks Okorafor. He's certainly gotten enough practice in leading up to this point that even if he doesn't practice tomorrow, or is at least a limited participant tomorrow, I would anticipate them maybe listing him as as questionable and then maybe upgrading him on Saturday or something like that. So we'll see. But the Steelers at least trending towards being reasonably healthy in this game. We'll see. Obviously, that could change if something is up with the Okorafor. You never like to see a guy show up on the injury report midway through a week, particularly on a Thursday. But we'll see about that. I'm going to take a break. I know that was a short first segment, but I want to spend some time on this second segment. So we'll do that when we come back. This is the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. This is the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And Football Outsiders, I know I like to quote Football Outsiders a lot on here. I think they do a great job with their analytics part of looking into teams and figuring things out here. And so they updated everything for the NFL going into the season here. Everything had happened in the preseason, injuries, guys who maybe retired in camp, or the Deshaun Watson situation. All those things were kind of factored into this, and they came out with their DVOA rankings for the start of the regular season. And so looking at this, the Steelers fare a lot better in this than I think a lot of pundits believe that they will be, especially nationally. If you look at this, they come out 17th in DVOA in these rankings done by Aaron Schatz on Football Outsiders. The offense comes in 23rd. That would be a slight improvement over what they were last year. The defense comes in DVOA as the number one defense in the league. Now, I know some of the listeners out there, and certainly people who pay attention to these things, well, how can they be number one in defense? Well, this is what Football Outsiders ran through their computers and came up with. They run a bunch of simulations on this thing, and they believe the Steelers have the number one defense in the NFL going into the regular season. Again, not my words, this is theirs. They believe that then adds up to the Steelers, their win total this year, mean wins. This is what the average wins were for the Steelers over the course of however many times that they ran their computer simulations. Came out to 8.1 wins, which of course would be above the number in Vegas with 7.5, and very much higher than some of the other numbers that we've seen thrown around out there that were some of these sites have the Steelers picking in the top 10, being the worst team in the AFC North and one of the worst teams in the AFC. Some of the teams ahead of the Steelers in the AFC, well, they got the Chargers ahead of them. They got Buffalo ahead of them. Baltimore comes in with 10.1 wins. Kansas City at 9.5. The Raiders at 8.9 and the Bengals at 8.8. They also have Denver at 8.6, New England at 8.5, and I have a big issue with that one. And then you got the Steelers there at 8.1. Right behind the Steelers, Indianapolis at 7.9, Miami at 7.9, the Jets at 7.8. Boy, I don't see that. Houston at 7.7. Again, I don't know that I see that. And then Cleveland at 7.7. People saying that this Deshaun Watson issue isn't a big deal for the Browns aren't seeing the big picture here. I don't think the Browns are good. I don't know how they get to 7.7 wins, to be quite honest with you. Deshaun Watson would have to come back in week 12 and be the Deshaun Watson of 2 years ago, right out of the gate. And remember, he hasn't played football in 2 years. So I don't know if that's realistic. But the number one defense in DVOA, defensive DVOA, in this metric was the Steelers. The other top 10 defenses were New Orleans, right behind the Steelers. Then the Chargers, the Bills, the Rams, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Jets, Dallas, and Chicago rounded out the top 10 in that. Now, one thing here that does stand out is, well, according to Football Outsiders DVOA, the Steelers have the number one toughest schedule in the NFL. And I like, this is something that seems to be happening almost every year. They had the toughest schedule going into last year. So this is nothing new for the Steelers. They're used to being in this situation. If you're looking at playoff odds, well, the Steelers' playoff odds certainly better, according to Football Outsiders, than maybe a lot of other websites and pundits might suggest. They give them a 35.6% chance of making the playoffs. They give them a 1.5% chance of winning the Super Bowl. You might say, well, that doesn't sound very much, but they give them a better chance to win the Super Bowl than Miami, Arizona, which won its division last year, Indianapolis. Who else is on there? Tennessee. They have Tennessee, according to this, has a 0.6% chance of winning the Super Bowl. Now, remember, They were the number 1 seed last year in the AFC playoffs. So, I don't know that everything is as dire in Pittsburgh as some of the pundits would lead you to believe. I think they could be certainly in the mix this year. I don't know if they make the playoffs, but I think that they'll be in it until the end. History has shown us that again and again and again. Mike Tomlin will have this team fighting for a playoff spot in late December. You can almost guarantee that. Write it down. So we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting season for sure. I am loath to write this team off just based on the history of this all. I'm getting ready to cover my 29th season of Pittsburgh Steelers football, maybe 30th. I'll have to count that. It's been 3 decades. I'm in my 3rd decade of covering Steelers football. Let's put it that way. And they've had 3 losing seasons in those years. I know I've said that in the past. I just wanted to drive that home once again. This team just doesn't accept losing. And you can say, well, yeah, but it's the standard should be playoff wins. And I get that. I get that 100%. Yes, the standard should be, and the standard for the Steelers is winning a Super Bowl. But to win the Super Bowl, you have to have a winning record. To get into the postseason, that's half the battle. That's more than half the battle right there. So they'll be in position. I truly believe that. And I think Football Outsiders believes that as well. If they have the number 1 defense in the league, if that holds up over the course of the season, well, the Steelers will have a pretty good chance of making the playoffs. Because I think the offense might overplay that 23rd ranking that Football Outsiders gave them over the course of this season. We'll see. I mean, a lot of it depends on the offensive line. I know everybody has concerns about that. I do as well. No doubt about it. But I think that situation is going to get better as the season goes on. I just do. You got a bunch of young linemen there. Now, are they uber talented? No. Can they be an average offensive line? Yeah, I think they could be an average offensive line. I think they could grow into something like that. So we'll see. But just wanted to touch on the Football Outsiders. You can check that out. It's all free on their website. The playoff odds, the Super Bowl win odds, all that good stuff. It's good to check out every week to see who's rising, who's falling, who are they high on, who are they not as high on. And, if you look at that total DVOA team, they're obviously much higher on the Ravens, for example, who they have is with the 2nd highest DVOA in the league than they are on, for example, the Bengals, who are 11th on that list. I know the Bengals are the hot team. Everybody loves the Bengals because they made the Super Bowl last year. Doesn't mean they're automatically going to repeat that this year. Football Outsiders seems to agree with that. That's going to do it for the Dale Lolley Show here today. I'll be back again tomorrow to preview the game, give you my pick in Steelers Bengals. That will be my final show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. So we'll make that an extra special one. You, of course, listen to all of our shows here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. We have shows on the Steelers, the Penguins, the Pirates, Pitt and Penn State, all kinds of good stuff on there. Listen to the Ramon Foster Show as well. I'll be back again tomorrow, as I said, to preview the game. I'll talk to you then.